On this episode of In the Gun, more tweaks to NIL and some new parameters around eligibility. All that and more on this episode of ITG.
You are in the gun.
Because once you enter this family, there's no getting out.
In the Gun, episode 344 of your new favorite WVU football podcast. I am Wes Uhler, as always, with the best teammates in the business. You've got myself, and you've got the signal caller, Jed Drenning, on this edition of ITG. And we've got a jam-packed edition of ITG for you, as there is a lot happening. There always is, but particularly the last week or so on the NIL front. Also, some new parameters around college eligibility in all sports, not just football, that we'll hit on. We've also got some Big 12 stuff and some WVU stuff from our guy Phil Steele to get into here as we are getting closer and closer to camps opening and the start of college football season. But Jed, a couple quick hitters here to get us started. As always, the first, hey, I'm wearing actually the college. I'm going to continue to wear College World Series merch and stuff on here until I run out of new stuff to wear. Okay, just deal with it. Unless I got to wear another one of my USA Soccer things here as the Yanks keep rolling in the World Cup.
Do you see the comments, Wes? Where's Waldo?
I did see that. I know.
Because you had that red.
I understand.
I never thought of that. The red and white.
I get it. Listen, when I bought it, I was like, this does kind of look Where's Waldo-ish. But it's supposed to be the American flag, America 250. Just roll with it, okay? Don't ask too many questions. Baseball, obviously, we spent a lot of time on the last couple episodes talking about the historic run for the Mountaineers, Jed. They were one of the last 4 teams standing, but we all know how this works, too. Just because the postseason plays out a certain way doesn't mean the final polls are going to maybe give certain teams the credit or the penalty that they deserve. But I think it was fair for the Mountaineers, Jed, as they finished ranked fourth for this past season by Baseball America. Obviously, national champion Oklahoma was number 1, but the Mountaineers finished ranked 4th. Highest, of course, I'm sure this doesn't surprise anybody, but highest final ranking in program history.
Very impressive, Wes. And as you said, sometimes the polls don't shake out to follow form with the tournament or the bowl games in the case of football. But in this instance, it feels kind of on. I mean, you start with the 2 teams that ended up playing for the championship in Oklahoma and North Carolina, which, oh, by the way, Oklahoma as a non-seeded team, wow,
Insane.
Comes out of absolutely nowhere. Weren't they under 500 in SEC play? That's a crazy story in its own right, and they found a way to get the best of a very good North Carolina team in that championship series. But West Virginia right behind Georgia, but right ahead of Texas. Other teams, West Virginia in the top 10 lands in front of. Troy, Alabama, Ole Miss, Mississippi State. It's like basically the SEC and then some. Southern Cal at 11, Auburn at 10, but meanwhile, the Big 12 champion Kansas Jayhawks finish at number 13. So very impressive. This does matter. This is meaningful. And when you stop and consider this is the type of thing that if you're going to make it to Omaha and you can't win the whole thing, at least have a good showing. And this demonstrates out of an 8-team field when you landed at number 4, we had a pretty good showing. And we did. We fought valiantly. Didn't get it done against North Carolina, but did some nice things against a Troy team. Think about this, Wes. This might be most impressive. Think of how we bombed that Troy team in that second game, 12-0. That's the 6th best team in the country, according to Baseball America, that we did that to. To me, when I looked at this poll, that's one of the first things that jumped out. I'm like, you can't dismiss Troy baseball. The 6th best team in the country by the experts this year, and we took them behind the woodshed in that second game. So all kinds of things to be happy about with this poll. Good on you, West Virginia baseball. This is something to be really proud of.
No doubt. Remember when we had our buddy Andrew Caridi on, I was like, Andrew, hey, I hope you spend, I forget what I said, 12 days, something like that, out in Omaha, right? However long it would take. We didn't quite make it 12 days, Jed, but we were out there for a week. A little over a week, I think, when it was all said and done, maybe 8 days. And you're right. Like, worst case scenario would have been, be Ole Miss and you lose your first 2 games and you're there for 2 days and then it's over. We went 2-2. You lost the wrong 2, but you won the right 2 to stay alive there and hang around for a week plus. and already adding some transfers. I've seen another like All-American D2 pitcher just committed to the Mountaineers this week. We know what Steve Sabins has done with All-American Division II transfers who step up to the next level here. Pretty good track record there. So let's keep this thing rolling and continue. I think you said this great, Jed. This is not a culmination for WVU baseball. This is an arrival, and hopefully they're going to be forcing us to spend a lot of time here in the springs and summers moving forward talking about the WVU baseball program. Jed, we obviously know that the WVU basketball program, the men's side here, I'm about to reference, a lot of anticipation for year 2 of the Ross Hodge, don't call him Hoge, era in Morgantown. And we now know, I'm sure WVU fans know, everyone likes it, right? Unfortunately, we're going to see the backyard brawl go away in football here for a few years, but it is continuing in men's basketball. This year will be the 193rd, which is nuts to think about. We're only a few years away from 200 here, meeting of the backyard basket brawl between, of course, West Virginia University and that school located in the Oakland district of Pittsburgh. Jed, Pitt was set to host. Last year's backyard brawl was in Morgantown. This upcoming one will be in Pittsburgh. But instead of having it at the Peterson Events Center, Pitt's home facility, it's going to be at PPG Paints Arena, a bigger facility in downtown Pittsburgh, the home of the Pittsburgh Penguins and our Lord and Savior, Sidney Patrick Crosby. That's a different conversation for another day. I'm sorry. Jed, December 9th, it's a Wednesday. It's going to be the Backyard Brawl Classic. It sounds like it's going to be an 8 o'clock tip-off, and there's going to be a game before that, maybe like a 5 or a 5:30 game before that. I don't know if that's going to involve Duquesne or Robert Morris or somebody else local, Penn State maybe. I don't know. There's still kind of mum's the word on that. But the backyard basket brawl between the men's teams this year will be played at PPG Paints Arena. It's an 18,000 plus seat stadium, again, home of the Pittsburgh Penguins. And this is exciting for me because, one, getting to Oakland is a nightmare, and parking for games at the Peterson Events Center is a nightmare. I always say the only thing that can get me to go to Oakland, and I live about a half an hour away from there. The only thing that can get me to go there is WVU basketball every other year, because it's just events at the Peterson Events Center are a nightmare because it's right in the middle of a city campus with nowhere to park. PPG Paints Arena will be better in that regard. It'll be a great neutral atmosphere. I would imagine it'll be packed or pretty stinking close to a sellout because it'll be a fun event and there'll be other fan bases involved. And so I'm looking forward to this, Jed. Not many new wrinkles to the West Virginia-Pitt rivalry, right? We've kind of seen it all on the grass. We've seen it all on the hardwood. Not much surprises us. But I didn't expect this, and I think it's going to be pretty cool. Don't get me wrong. There's part of me that's like, yes, it's a rivalry game. It should be played on campus. I get that. But we're not the ones giving it up, and there's going to be a ton of WVU fans in that place.
There are, and Wes, I'm not obviously a Pitt basketball study, nor do I care to be. But I'm going to guess they don't move a lot of games to a larger neutral site arena elsewhere in Pittsburgh. So, yeah, that's an appreciation of what West Virginia is going to bring. Just like we do on the football side of the brawl, we do on the basketball side of the brawl. They recognize that. The Peterson Center can't really facilitate what's needed in the West Virginia matchup situation. So they're going to move it to a larger arena. And, let's face it, I don't know what's going on with Pitt basketball, but as you touched on, West Virginia basketball is a little buzzy right now. Recruiting's going very well. Things have gone well in the portal. You're starting to really get that ship in a true direction that you want it to head. My son, I think I mentioned on the show a few weeks ago, he attended WVU basketball camp this year. And it was a cool vibe just all around the facility. It was at the indoor practice facility, or the basketball practice facility, I should say. And it was just a cool vibe all around that facility. There's some excitement around the program. They got to meet some of the players on the last day of camp. Coach Hodge was there, I think, all but one day of camp. He surfaced for significant stretches, very accessible, shaking everybody's hand. Had 2 or 3 conversations with him as, toward the tail end as we're watching the scrimmages with our kids. But, West Virginia basketball is a little buzzy right now, both the men's and the women's. And I think Pitt even recognizes that. And they're trying to make the most of an opportunity for the backyard brawl in a much larger arena.
Yeah, and before we move on here, quick anecdote for you on that, and you'll like this. Pitt's as you can imagine, as soon as the news broke, there was a lot of Pitt fans who were like, hey, come on, like, I get it, but this is a rivalry game. We should have it on campus, in our stadium, our student section, and all that stuff, right? As if it's still 2007 and Pitt basketball still has some great home court advantage there at the Peterson Event Center. Dewan Blair and Levance Fields and Jamie Dixon ain't walking through that door. But Alan Green, the athletic director from Pitt, and a lot of the people around the program, their reasoning was basically this is going to allow them to sell additional sponsorship opportunities, additional revenues, and that's going to be able to contribute to NIL and is going to, help the program. And so the response of a lot of Pitt fans was like, "Oh, that's great. Yeah, all the West Virginia fans are going to show up and they're going to be supporting our NIL while they do it. Thanks so much, West Virginia fans, for buying tickets and supporting our NIL." Yeah, I'm sure the extra 100 grand is really going to tip the scales in the NIL portal there and get Jeff Capel to getting Pitt basketball back to where they belong. That's all he needs is a little more ticket revenue from a couple extra thousand WVU fans. Then he'll get the program back where they belong. No, Jed, the real reason Pitt's doing this is because when we kick their ass again, just like we've done the last 2 years, they can count this technically as a neutral site loss and not a home loss. Smart. It's real smart.
True. That's a great point. And Wes, I to think about that, I remember in 2017 when we opened the season at FedEx Field against Virginia Tech, both fan bases, the West Virginia fan base and the Virginia Tech fan base, were complaining for what you just said. Hey, why can't this be on campus? This is a rivalry game. And I think in that instance, both fan bases had a legitimate gripe because they would have brought it, whether it was in Morgantown, whether it was in Blacksburg. But just like you said, that's not necessarily the case in Oakland when it comes to Pitt sports. The heyday is several decades ago, at least a couple decades ago in basketball, half a century ago in football. So not the same type of gripe that the West Virginia and Virginia Tech fan bases might have been putting on the table, 8-9 years ago now when we played on a neutral site at FedEx. I'm not a big neutral site guy. Sometimes they're all right, but when it comes to rivalries, I kind of agree with that. But in this instance, come on. I mean, how much is Pitt really going to bring? I just can't imagine.
I have a feeling there'll be a large swath of just neutral people there who maybe are kind of like, yeah, I'd like to see Pitt win, but maybe some of them are Penn State people, Ohio State people, Notre Dame people, just college and sports fans in the area in general.
What's the date?
It's a Wednesday. It's December 9th. Okay. It's a Wednesday. So I imagine there'll be a decent chunk of just neutral people there who are just there to enjoy the game. Jed, the last two backyard brawl football games I guess the first one was at Heinz and then Acrisure Stadium after the name change. The ones up here in Pittsburgh. I remember there always is, right? There's always a lot of debate. Was it 60-40 Pitt and WVU fans? What was the exact number? Yeah. In that conversation, I think the part that people always leave out is it's probably 15% just neutrals who are just there for the party, there for the game, don't really have a rooting interest. Yeah, maybe more of them are like, oh, if I had to pick, I'd pick Pitt because they're the hometown team, but I don't really care. I know a lot of people that are Penn State people, Michigan State people, Ohio State people, Notre Dame people that go to the brawl every time it's up here because it's 20 minutes away from their house and it's a great event. And I would imagine that this is going to be similar. It's going to be pretty cool. And then finally, Jed, before we go to our break here, we kind of laughed on our last episode. We were saying that we were nearing a conclusion of the Brendan Sorsby saga, that he was declaring for the supplemental draft, and that pretty soon we just have to wait and see where he ends up, and this whole thing will be behind us. Well, that's not the case, as the NFL sending some shockwaves through the football world on Monday, as they announced that they would not be holding a supplemental draft this offseason. So Sorsby, no opportunity to enter the NFL until this coming April of 2027, about 10 months from now, in the next NFL draft. Now, obviously, Jed, I still don't think this story is over, this Sorsby saga, because they're going to, that's the weird part to me in all of this, not to kind of jump ahead or step on any toes, but I just, him and his agent have announced that they're going to, try and sue and work with the NFLPA and all this stuff. He's not in the NFLPA. He's not in the league. So I can't see the NFLPA being very interested in picking this fight with the NFL when they already have a lot of other things that are higher on their priority list. Why are they going to go to bat for this guy who's never paid dues, who's never been part of the NFLPA, who has a gambling scarlet letter on his chest? Listen, there is a very small part of me, Jed, very small. If you're watching on YouTube, I'm like playing the world's tiniest violin here. that does feel for Sorsby, because I think he's that one guy now that everybody wants to make an example of. And so he's going to get it worse than anybody else. And so for that, I feel a fraction of empathy for him, that I think it's pretty clear from all sides. They're trying to set an example. They're trying to use him as an example. And unfortunately, sometimes when you get in trouble, that's just the case. But man, I this thing is not over yet, but I don't see how it ends any differently than him having to wait another 10 months and enter a loaded NFL draft at quarterback position and not have an opportunity to see a football field for over a year.
Yeah, and let's clarify to begin with. The NFL didn't cancel the supplemental draft. There need to be special conditions for them to choose to hold a supplemental draft, right? And you didn't say they canceled it. I just wanted to point that out because a lot of people might think that, wow, they're canceling it. No, they had to have special conditions to even hold one. They don't have one every year. So they just decided against it. This is the league office. Now, bear in mind, we also need to clarify who made this decision. This is the league office. This is the NFL league office. So that's not to suggest there weren't a list of teams interested in the talents of Brendan Sorsby, because there certainly were. And I think that was part of what concerned the NFL league office. The NFL league office was granted discretion with things like this through the collective bargaining agreement. That discretion can be exercised to hold or not hold under various circumstances the supplemental draft. They chose against it because, quite frankly, there were teams interested in Brendan Sorsby. Yes, there were teams interested in that little combine that he was going to have at the high school in Texas. Yep. Yes, there are, I don't know what the number is attached to it, 8, 10, 12 teams that are very much in the quarterback market. So their radars were way up with all things Brendan Sorsby. They were interested. The league office, this is me reading the tea leaves here, the league office recognized that interest and said, this is not a problem we want to deal with. In other words, the teams might not mind the baggage, but the league does. And yes, it's hypocritical, as we said, when there's sponsorships for every betting house in the world attached to everything or all things NFL and everything and all things college football. But the NFL doesn't care. It's trying to protect the shield, protect its brand, protect the integrity of the game. Say what you want about anything else. They would lose the house, no pun intended, if in fact people started to question the integrity of the game. So they had to take all things gambling seriously. And I think the best thing about this, Wes, is I don't know what the NFL's motivations truly were for saying, no, your money's no good here, move on. They did voice in the letter that the league office sent to Brennan Sorsby, in effect, look, we don't think you're sorry for what you did. You tried to wiggle out of the punishment for it. You're not showing remorse. We don't think you learned your lesson. And that weighed into the decision. But by and large, I don't know what all the things were baked into this decision that the NFL made. But they ended up doing the right thing for college football. Now, that might have been for the wrong reason. I don't know. I don't know their motivations. But the NFL sent a very resounding and loud message to college football. Look, we don't care about what happens with your legal battles and your court battles and your declarative, judgments and all these types of things that were going on back and forth between Sorsby's attorneys and the Big 12 attorneys and the NCAA office. We don't care. All we know is if you're betting on your own team, here's what the league office thinks of you. So future college football players who want to toy with that idea and think it's all right to jump on your app and gamble on your own team, here's what the NFL league office thinks of it. Again, separate from what the NFL teams might think of it. Now, in effect, they're the same thing because the NFL league office works for the owners, but that doesn't mean all 32 owners are always lockstep on every issue, because they're not. There were certain teams very interested in Brendan Sorsby's talents, but the league office pulled the plug and said, not going to happen. The juice is not worth the squeeze to us. It might be to some teams, but it's not to us. We protect the shield. We think for all 32. You think for yourself. Not going to happen. So it's a positive message being sent down to the college football ranks. So the powers that be at, in college football, whether it's the NCAA or whoever else, can at least lean on that and say, look, we found some support from the higher ups above us. You have aspirations of playing professionally? Well, here's what the professional league thinks of you doing that. So there is that. So it does help college football, incidentally or otherwise. Again, I don't know if that was the NFL's intention. I'm sure it wasn't, because the NFL thinks of itself. But it's going to work out for college football some way, shape, or form. But this thing with Sorsby, just like you said, Wes, not the last we're going to hear about it. just because he can't technically be part of the NFL until next year's draft. I had some people asking, can't you just sign anybody without being drafted or without being taken in the supplemental draft? Well, yeah, you're right. The way that works is, in some cases, yes, you can. NFL teams can year-round sign certain people, but your status or the status of player that you are weighs into that. If you're an unrestricted free agent like Wes Uhler and Jed Drenning, we can sign anytime, anywhere with anybody. We're completely unrestricted.
Jed, if I went down to the practice facility and ran a 4.3 and was 6'6", and they could sign me, yes.
Yes, but there are different categories of players, and that's what's going to dictate this. Plus, it's a one-off with the NFL just intervening and saying this isn't going to happen. We can choose who plays and who doesn't. You can challenge with all the litigation you want. It's very unsolid footing that you're standing on. As you touched on, you're not even a member of the NFL Players Association, and you're trying to align yourself with them to sue the league. I just don't understand how they think.
Pay some dues.
Kessler's
first,
too smart for that.
Yeah.
What's that?
I said, pay some dues first, brother. Jeez Louise.
Yes. And Kessler is an incredibly talented antitrust attorney, as we said, when his talents were acquired by Sorsby and his team. But I think this is a bridge too far. And I don't even know if Kessler can do anything about this. But that's not to say we still have some things to sort out in the rubbish left behind by this whole mess. I posted on Twitter that this offseason backlash against Texas Tech has been so severe that Landman might rethink its Texas Tech references and go like UT Permian Basin instead.
Sure.
Inside joke, but there you have it, Wes. Stay tuned for more Brendan Sorsby.
The story that never ends.
Yep.
About halfway home here on this episode of ITG. We're going to take a break, but when we return, we've got the latest from our guy, Phil Steele, and we got to talk about some tweaks around NIL and collegiate eligibility. All that and more as we roll along. Wes Uhler, Jed Drenning, you are in the gun. For nearly 20 years, Fortis has been the nation's leader in providing guaranteed roof performance programs for commercial buildings. Fortis offers roof performance solutions that feature extensive initial and ongoing reconditioning for commercial buildings as an alternative to traditional replacement, with long-term performance guarantees that are backed by global leader Lloyd's of London. Fortis offers a comprehensive range of roof performance management programs that provide financial security, extend the life of our customers' roofs, and make a significant impact on ROI. Fortis is currently improving performance and increasing ROI for customers at more than 4,800 locations, with more than 140 million square feet protected, including many Fortune 500 companies that have turned to Fortis to save money, gain financial certainty, and extend the life of their existing roofs. Fortis has helped customers save more than $520 million in capital roof replacement costs for an average ROI of over 250%. To learn more, visit fortis.us.com. Fortis, roof performance and financial certainty guaranteed.
Nobody supports the blue and gold Mountaineers like Toothman Ford. With over 20 NIL deals and counting, Toothman Ford continues to rally behind our student athletes. And it's time we rally and support the dealer that supports the Mountaineers. Not only does Toothman Ford offer the best prices in the state on pre-owned, their never over MSRP campaign on new Fords guaranteed to save you thousands. Drive with pride all season long, knowing you're supporting the dealer that fuels our Mountaineers. Toothman Ford, where cars cost less, in Grafton and at toothmanford.com.
From first light to the last job done, you need equipment that works as hard as you do. Coyote tractors deliver the power, precision, and durability to take on any task, big or small. And at Johnston Equipment, it's more than just equipment. It's service you can count on. With a full lineup of Coyote tractors and equipment, we'll help you find the perfect fit for your land, your job, your life. Because when your equipment's built right, everything else falls into place.
Visit Johnston Equipment today and come see the Coyote difference for yourself.
Back on the gun here as we roll along. And Jed, we are getting closer and closer to the start of the college football season. Hey, don't look now, but it's basically July already. Camps are going to be opening soon. And it'll be week 0 before you know it. And with that, Jed, we've got some latest predictions and rankings from good friend of the show and the czar of college football, Phil Steele.
In an age when so many people, Wes, get so caught up in being first instead of being right, that's what you have to appreciate about Phil. Phil doesn't care if he's first. He knows if he vets the information thoroughly enough and continues to defend the track record that he's established over the long arc of time, he can come out a handful of weeks or even over a month later than the rest. They're going to hit the newsstands, and people are going to, rally toward or rally behind what he has as opposed to those. And, Phil is a friend of the show. And we kind of get a sense in working with him for the last number of years that we get a taste of inside baseball or how the sausage is made with the Phil Steele operation. It's as impressive as you might think, the behind the scenes look of how this works. We work not just with Phil, but with his quote unquote people in organizing some things to happen on the show. So this is an imperfect science, college football forecasting. So the most you can hope for when somebody tries to forecast it is they did their work. They put the work in, and there's a grind behind what you're reading. And I'm not convinced that's always the case with some of these publications. They're more concerned with the flash and the shiny things and their cover, selling their magazine. With Phil, he puts in the work. He has thorough discussions with just about every FBS coach, which how you work that into an off-season schedule when you have to wait until after spring ball, or this year he had a little bit of extra time because the portal window wasn't there. But it's all jammed into a handful of months, and he puts in the work. Phil does the grind. He does. So sometimes you're going to get it right. He gets it right more than most, but you're not going to bat 1,000. This is a tough business. But what I wanted to touch on was this time last year, and we're going to try and get Phil on here to promote the magazine here sometime soon, just like we did a year ago. Last year, everybody was kind of, put off by where he predicted West Virginia to finish at the bottom of the Big 12. And our questions were to him, okay, we understand this is a new coach and Coach Rod, a brand new roster, but what separates West Virginia from the other new coaches and other new rosters? And again, Phil being Phil, defended his answer by saying, look, you have a tougher schedule than some of the others. And he mentioned Cincinnati. He said, if you had Cincinnati's schedule, I might be picking you as the dark horse, but the schedule matters. So he had reasons for what he predicted. Well, this year, instead of finishing last, Phil has us predicted to finish 7th in the Big 12, but it's a log jam at 7th. He lists other teams at number 7, Wes, including UCF, Kansas State, and there's change at all these schools on some level, right? Arizona State, there's some continuity at Arizona State, obviously, but there's also some change. West Virginia and Cincinnati. So what I just list, 5 teams that he has projected in a 5-way tie for 7th place. So somebody is going to tip a few balls, break a few returns, and separate from the pack. But just for starters, that's what Phil has us projected to do within the confines of the Big 12. I know he's a Coach Rod fan. I know he understands the nature of this roster. See, that's one of the things that makes Phil a little different. Some of the other national outlets are going to look at this and say, wow, West Virginia had 80 new players last year. Why, just same thing this year, 80 new players. And they're not going to distinguish between the 80 last year and the 80 this year. The 80 last year were recruited by Rich and Dusty and no staff in place, racing to get, talent acquired and signed before the main portal window closed. We didn't have a staff in place. This year was much more vetted, much more targeted, much more specific toward our needs, and an entire staff and scouting department working toward that end, which is why I think it went so much better on the recruiting front and on the portal front. So it's not, yes, it's 80 new faces, but it's not the same situation as the 80 new faces last year. Phil understands that. That's what I got for starters. I want to toss it to you for your comments, and then we're going to get into what Phil had to say about the position groups, because that always fascinates me as well.
Well, real quick, I don't think you said it. If you did, I apologize. Predicted us to finish kind of in a log jam there at 7th. Did he attach a conference record and an overall record with that, or no?
You know what? I'm looking at the main page as opposed to our page. I don't see a projected record.
Okay.
Unless I'm missing it. I'll double back through here as we're talking. But he picked Texas Tech, obviously, to finish first. I think whether it's Will Hammond or not, by week 3, their quarterback, that's what most people are going to project. You have this group of teams toward the top. It's going to be some order, varying order of this, and Phil had the same. He has Texas Tech, BYU, Utah, then Houston. Houston's getting a lot of love, as they should. I think we caught them at a ripe time last year, maybe for the wrong reasons. They just lost their strength coach. They were honoring him when we went to
Yeah,
Houston.
that's
They were
right. I
mentally in
forgot
a
about
tough
that.
place, but we showed up to play and kind of punched them in the mouth. So that was a big win for our program. And then right behind that is Arizona and TCU, and then the cluster at number 7. So, but go ahead and have some comments, and I'll take another look here.
I was just going to say, I mean, I won't fully say this without the record attached, but if you said to me right now, you can guarantee that WVU finishes 7th in the Big 12 this year, or you can go fish, I might take 7th. To go from the bottom of the barrel in year 1 to 7th, top half of the conference in year 2, that would be substantial. That would be substantial. So if that was something like a 8-win season, and you go what? So there's 3 non-conference games. So you go 5-4 in Big 12 play, and you finish 8-4 overall. I might take that, Jed. I might not go fish. I might sign up for that right now. That would be a substantial step forward here in year 2.
I'm not seeing a projected record, Wes, but honestly,
But you get what I'm saying.
I look for a lot. I'm looking now as we're talking, and a lot of people jump right to that. I mean, that's the first thing they look at, and they don't go much beyond that.
Real quick.
Yep.
This is one of those prompts for the audience. If you're on the YouTube comments, making fun of me for looking like Waldo last week in my USA Soccer jersey, tell me in the YouTube comments right now if I could tell you WVU finishes 7th in the Big 12. You taking that, or are you going fish? You take it, or you go fish? Let us know in the comments.
You know what you want me to answer?
I do.
What do I have to lose by saying no? I'm not taking it.
We finished 15th or 14th and don't make a bowl game.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
What do you mean? Okay. You want to go 4-8
again,
or do you want to go 8-4?
Well, I don't know if 8-4 is going to get you 7th.
If you go 3-0 in non-con, it could.
I heard the math you were given, but
5-4 in the conference, 3-0 in non-con, 8-4 finish.
Potentially. I don't know if I'm too ambitious to do that. I don't know.
I know you are. I know you are.
You know what? This is the thing, Wes.
I'm not knocking
10 years ago, I'd have said absolutely 7th, because you build your roster over the course of 4 and 5 years. Retention's not an issue. You're bringing the same guys back and developing them for 3, 4, 5 seasons. Yes, it's going to matter if you show progress each year with that same group that doesn't change much at all. But in this era, when so much of your roster is going to be flipped, not as much as these first couple years. Granted, moving forward, it will stabilize to a large extent, but it's still going to be major changes compared to what it used to be. So, yeah, you want progress. I just don't know that it represents what it once did in the pre-portal era. You know what I'm saying?
That's fair. I absolutely think that's fair.
But let's jump into position groups. I'm going to save the big one for last. Let's work backwards. Special teams. Think about Phil trying to do this. I mean, if you had your own homework project and you're sitting there and say, I want to rank all 16 Big 12 special teams units, their kicker, their punter, their returners, their coverage units, their long snapper, their holder, and a lot of them are transfers. I mean, transfers are a problem to forecast at any position, but you're looking at this and I don't know how you come up with it. So I'll trust that Phil has done as much work as you could do to try and do so. Well, he ranks our special teams number 12. He ranks Texas Tech's number 1, if you're wondering who tops the league, which makes sense. If you have the most complete roster, the same players are populating your transition units that are populating your offense and defense. So why wouldn't you be number 1? Okay, now let's move backwards to defensive backs. 15th. He has us ranked 15th. BYU at number 1. They have some guys back. I don't know if I entirely agree with that. I don't. It's going to be a hit or miss proposition with some of those corners for sure. But we got different body types in there. But that was kind of a stable source of this defense that showed up pretty regularly last year was at corner in the secondary. We just didn't have any length. And there were some matchups, Texas Tech, BYU, that exploited that lack of length. But by and large, they kind of overachieved and performed. So now we got some length in there. See if you can coach them up and get some production. Linebackers, number 12. Now you go to defensive line, number 8. I was just putting together a short for our ITG short side, Wes. And when you look at career snaps, CBS Sports ranked that recently for each position group and each side of the ball, and then overall. And West Virginia is 117th in the country in defensive line snaps. But here's why that's a little misleading. We have at least a couple very battle-tested JUCO commodities that played a combined 40 games at the college level, granted the junior college level, that don't count toward that total. That tells me when Phil ranks us middle of the pack, despite our experience being 117th in the country on our defensive line, he recognizes some of that too. See, that's Phil doing his homework and not saying the same thing everybody else is saying, just looking at career snaps, and that's the end-all be-all. Now, you get into offensive line. He ranks us number 3. So he's picking up what we're putting down there. And again, a lot of transfers. Yep.
I wouldn't go fish there. I'd take the third best offensive line in the,
I'd take
the
that.
Big 12.
Yeah. You got the Trickett factor. You got all the new faces. And if career snaps plays a factor at all, we're in the top 10 of the country on the offensive line. I think we're 7th or 8th with over 8,000 career snaps, I believe, with our offensive line. And then receiver, we're 15th as a group. Again, I don't know how you project this. Some of the guys that should be playing key roles in this group, Jaden Bray was banged up last year. Prince Strawn was banged up at USC and didn't play most of the year. It's tough to forecast some of this stuff. And then you go to running back. This tells you a little bit of something, Wes, about what he thinks we might have behind Cam Cook. Because remember, this is a running back group ranking. He has us tied with Texas Tech at number 1. So he likes the depth that we could wield there. That goes beyond Cam Cook. If it's just Cam Cook and he's not happy with what's behind him, you're not number 1. But this group ranking at number 1 says he is. Now, quarterback, we're at a tie looks like a 3-way tie at number 11. I once again, I don't know how you forecast that. You got somewhat of a sample size with what Scotty Fox did as a true freshman last year, somewhat as a sample size of what Michael Hawkins did over the course of 2 years at Oklahoma. But it wasn't in the system, which I think is more suited to his talents than what he was doing at Oklahoma. Difficult to project, but Phil puts the effort in. So again, it's a flawed process, but at least Phil does the grind, which is even if he's wrong, you got to respect what he might forecast and see how this shakes out. But I thought that was worth mentioning now that I finally have the hard copy in my hands. By the way, we need to be plugging the VIP status on the philsteele.com website because it's worth every penny. I mean, we do it every year. And there's more to just getting the magazine in your hands. There's weekly updates throughout the season. There's different things that you can have access to. But like I said, we need to get Phil on here at sometime soon to plug the magazine. We just got to coordinate that, hopefully here in the next few weeks.
Yeah, always a pleasure to have Phil on. For those who might have joined us in the off season here, we during the college football season have an episode with Phil Steele every single Friday where he talks about the WVU game, talks about the Big 12 games, and then we hit on a couple big, Ohio State's playing Texas or whatever the case may be, a couple of the big national games as well too. So we'll be excited to catch back up with Phil Steele here soon. And every time we do, it gets me real excited because that means that the college football is on the horizon. Jed, rocking and rolling here on this edition of ITG. We have, stop me if you've heard this before, but we have some more tweaks, some more changes to NIL, and now to eligibility around the NCAA too. So let's start with the NIL stuff here first.
It's pretty quick.
As that's, I think, a lesser conversation, and we could kind of piggyback off of it from there. But Jed, again, it sounds redundant, but stop me if you've heard this before. Here we go. Some more changes, some more tweaks to the parameters around name, image, and likeness.
Yeah, credit to Pete Nakos, who posted this on X. I'll read it verbatim. The College Sports Commission will not subject deals valued between $600 to $15,000 to review unless and until an athlete has exceeded $50,000 in associated deals in an academic year. Now, schools were notified by memo on Tuesday. So here are those numbers again, and I'll walk you through what that means. The College Sports Commission is supposed to give the okay on deals before they go through the process and are granted to the player. So if Company X wants to offer a certain amount of money to the starting wide receiver for University X, the rules have always been if it's more than $599, that's for IRS purposes. If it's $600 or more dollars, they have to submit it to the CSC, the College Sports Commission, and the CSC has to review it, see if it's fair market value, see if it's a square deal, and then approve it. That's the way it's always been done. These deals need approved if they're more than $600. Anything under $600, under any circumstances, you could have kind of just tossed $500 at a kid and said it doesn't need to be approved by the CSC. What they're changing is if the deal is even more than 600, if it's between 600 and 15,000, it doesn't need to be scrutinized by the CSC for legitimacy either, unless the player at that point has exceeded $50,000. So what this represents to me, Wes, is more so than the math. It's an indication that change could be coming to some of these things, because that's what in fact this is. This is the CSC recognizing a bit of a hole in the process. First of all, they're overwhelmed by how many deals that are thrown their way, and that's in part why so much money is getting held up and not approved. They're pretty jammed up. So this could ease up some of that, and maybe make things run more efficiently in terms of getting to the root of the larger deals, the more significant deals that really need to be put under the light and held up to scrutiny. But more so than anything, it demonstrates a willingness to change on some level for some of these rules. And hopefully that means, with the new litigation that could be coming our way, we saw the 5-for-5 deal, but you also have the bill in the Senate still being discussed and possibilities there. So more evidence that change could be afoot. But stay tuned. It's just something that kind of grabbed my eye. I thought it was interesting. As somebody who's tried to navigate their way through this NIL world with the CSC, we didn't pull the trigger on it, but we had a partner who was very interested in trying to align something from a promotional standpoint with the entire team. We never pulled the trigger on it, but I learned a lot through that process in recent years. And so this is a change. So anything even 600 to 1,500, it's not just under 600, might be, depending on what the player has earned, might not be scrutinized to the greatest degree. But once they get up to 50K, yep, it's just as scrutinized as it ever was.
Clearinghouse, baby. Yeah, I think, we all know it's never going to be perfect, but I think we're starting to get more and more parameters in place that are at least going to make it better. Speaking of which, Jed, our final topic of the day is kind of piggybacking off of what we just talked about. Stop us if you heard changes at the NCAA level before. And we all know now in this portal era, things are never going to be perfect in this modern college football era. The conferences aren't the way that we want them. A lot of the way that player movement and things are governed is not necessarily the way that we want them. One thing, Jed, and I think you and I have even talked about it on this show before, was just the idea of how about 5 years of eligibility for these guys. If you redshirt, great. If you don't, great. If you have an injury, whatever the case may be, if you play all 5 years, whatever. But we got to stop getting 25 and 26-year-olds, 27-year-olds in collegiate sports. This isn't right. Well, a kind of monumental change in eligibility rules from the NCAA Division I cabinet. The NCAA will now allow athletes 5 seasons of competition over a 5-year period that begins with their full-time enrollment or the academic year following their 19th birthday, whichever occurs first. Jed, some of the stuff that we discuss here on the show, I don't want to say is small potatoes, but it's not monumental. This feels like it could be and should be monumental. And finally, some parameters around the Trinidad Chambliss and the Diego Pavias and all these different cases of how many years of these guys actually played, how many years of eligibility. This to me was needed. It's not perfect. It needs some tweaks, but I think we're at least heading in the right direction here.
Yeah, I mean, as somebody who is knee deep with most of this stuff on the football side, I can't tell you the number of times in recent years where somebody would ask me, looking to me as quote unquote the expert, "Hey, Jed, how many years does that guy have left?" And so often my answer was simply, I don't know. Uh, I need an abacus. I need my Ovaltine decoder ring. I got to go back and see if COVID's still at play. There's so many different things that have impacted the extension of eligibility for some of these kids, the hardship waivers on down the line. My answer was usually, I don't know. It's a headache to try and figure out. Once they get to their final year, I usually have a sense of that's coming. But other than that, I mean, even for senior day, I mean, we were even to a point in recent years, Wes, where seniors kind of had to exercise some discretion as to whether or not they would walk out on senior day because maybe it's their last game, maybe it's not. So, yes, craziness obviously ensued. Part of it was COVID, part of it were some of the rule changes. But this should stabilize that to some extent. First, it should help the players, but it should also help the coaches. Coaches have wanted 5 for 5 forever. They've been clamoring this for a number of years now. From a roster management standpoint, it makes a lot of sense. It helps you forecast what your needs might in fact be in the years to come. There's still going to be some guesswork, obviously, because the portal portion of this hasn't been addressed. Some people say this isn't that big of a deal until you stabilize the portal side of it. It still matters. Even without the portal being stabilized, this part of it matters. But a couple of things come to mind, Wes. Initially, when I first saw this come down, it wasn't that long ago, we were having this discussion on the show about playing in 4 games and still redshirting. Remember when that rule changed a handful of years ago? Hey, you can play in 4 games and still be a redshirt. Okay, well, how are teams going to handle that? How are players going to handle that? Well, once we got into the portal era, we saw how players handled that. You had National Self-Redshirt Week, which came after your 4th game of the season. How many players across the country hung it up and took it to the house after their team's 4th game? Nope, I'm done for the season. I'm self-redshirting. I'm moving on.
Enough that you notice it.
My ankle's sore. My knee doesn't feel right. My shoulder is out of sorts. So first and foremost, this could be a break for training staffs all across the country. They'll have a little less to do because all of a sudden there won't be as many injured, quote unquote, injured players after the 4th game of the season. But so agents took that rule with the 4 games to play and still redshirt, and they kind of weaponized it and used it as leverage when negotiating with programs. And that was not the spirit or the intention of the rule. So that's now gone. It serves no purpose now to self-redshirt because redshirting is no longer going to be a thing. There's no need to redshirt. So let's go to the coaching side of it. All right. I said, since there's no longer redshirts, redshirt was all about development, the long-term viability of the player improving because you can sit the kid and he can watch, maybe get a few snaps here or there in a couple games and just become a little more battle-tested as he grows longer in the tooth. Learns your system, learns your language, develops a comfort level at the college level. That's not going to be the case anymore. But you know what? That had started to fade already anyway. Redshirting wasn't what it was 7 or 8 years ago in the last couple years because coaches already started to recognize, look, in the portal era with these kids bouncing around, previously a couple times in a year, sometimes 8 or 9 times in their career, why am I going to redshirt somebody and coach them up to not get snaps and help me win just so they can transfer and help somebody else next year? So a lot of coaches had steered away from the volume of redshirting that they used to do anyway. And this is kind of the final step that kills the redshirt because it's officially gone now. The goal is obviously to make eligibility easier for the players, for the athletes. It will also be easier for the coaches, but even on the compliance side, it's going to make more sense and be easier for them to understand and look at things and pop the hood and make some sense out of stuff. The schools need to understand what's going on, but Division I student athletes under the rule would be allowed, in quite simply, 5 years of eligibility if they enroll in college. And here's the kicker: no later than the academic year after their 19th birthday. So just like it sounds, if you turn 19 in, I don't know, Wes, let's say October, then the next year is when you're going to want to enroll if you want to maximize your clock. And I sent you guys something in the group thread. Somebody even suggested all this is going to do is have parents now hold out their kids
I saw
and
that,
not play
yeah.
that first year of college because they're at a physical disadvantage if they're 17 or 18 playing against 19-year-old freshmen. And this guy was saying, look, I was a junior when I was 19 at USC. He said that was a disadvantage when these other juniors are going to be 22 and 23. So understand the birthday portion of this, when you turn 19, when the five-year clock starts ticking. And then people ask, are there exceptions to the rule? They're the ones that you might anticipate, starting with official religious missions. So think BYU or even Utah, schools like that, that impacts that. Sometimes those things come right in the middle of your eligibility. Sometimes they become before it. Active duty military service. Absolutely. We're all for that. And then the other one is pregnancy. So we're obviously talking women's sports here. But those are the three that would be considered as exceptions to this. But by and large, and we'll get into some of the more details, Wes, but I think it's a positive across the board. Yes, people want the complete pie. They want this in conjunction with the portal being fixed or minimized or streamlined or however you want to look at it. But that's just not the nature of how this is going to happen. It's going to happen a painful step at a time, a sensible step at a time, overcome the other things that don't work with it. Take what you can get right now. Baby steps, it makes sense. So let's keep working toward more baby steps that make sense as well. I think it fits for everybody. And it's what the coaches want and the coaches get. And now the players can make sense out of it as well. And somebody asked me, now I can answer their question. But thoughts initially, Wes?
Yeah. I think you did a great job of laying it out. And the history of this podcast shows it. I have called for parameters around eligibility. It's been, I understood it a few years ago when we were still getting out of COVID, and there was all those exceptions for that COVID year that didn't count against scholarship years all across the NCAA. I understood it for a while, but that time has passed. That's 6 years ago. There is so much about this sport that is the Wild West. One thing that we can't have Diego Pavia and Trinidad Chambliss and all these people suing to stay in college longer. It can't happen. As you mentioned, 19-year-olds and 18-year-olds shouldn't be playing against 24 and 25 and 26-year-olds. It should not be the case. I understand you could scream antitrust and you're not letting these guys make money through NIL and all that other hogwash you want to give me. I don't care. It's the NCAA. There have to be parameters around eligibility. This, all this stuff with these guys on the basketball side that go to the NBA, play in the NBA for a year, and then come back to college. Like, what are we doing here? Again, Jed, none of this is ever going to be perfect. There's way too many people involved. There's way too many billions of dollars involved, way too many universities, way too many different unique situations. It's never going to be perfect. There's never going to be a system that's perfect for everybody. I get it. But there also that doesn't mean that you just put your hands up and let it be the Wild West and this person can sue and that person has to go, but this person can stay for a 7th year. And it's just, you need to rein this in a little bit. And this is a good first step towards doing so.
You absolutely do. And one of the other things it's going to eliminate is the controversy around waivers. Because in the past, a kid would have to apply for a waiver. Even during the portal era, there were times that you would have to apply for a waiver. Usually it was a hardship waiver, but there were other categories as well. And you would sometimes see things happen where the waivers were accepted in one case and they were rejected for much the same reason. In another case, it was wildly inconsistent. That's not going to happen anymore because now you have 5 years to play 5, not 5 years to play 4. It was always 5 years to play 4. That's why things like waivers mattered. But when it's 5 to play 5, no waivers. You got 5 years. You're not getting a 6th year. You got 5 years. Now, are you going to maximize those 5 years? That's point number one. And then point number two, you mentioned antitrust. The first group that will have legal complaints about this, you figure it will be when they tried to retrofit this and say, okay, let's go back and see what class we start with and what class is the cutoff. I believe it works out that the 2022 incoming class is the ones that will kind of get caught in the crosshairs here. If you finish your eligibility through the 2025-2026 season, you can't exercise this opportunity, this new rule. So if you are a player coming into this fall, a football player with 1 year left, this is it for you. You're not allowed to use this and retrofit it for an extra year. So I do imagine, especially when you're talking about some red shirts in this conversation, some guys who came in and red shirted because the school probably suggested they do so. There's going to be some litigation there. What would life be without litigation when you talk college football? Right.
Exactly
So
right.
there's going to be, there's going to be some lawyers, and there will be some lawyers involved there. But what Schuyler did, and to his credit, I told him he probably needed to pop a Dramamine before he did this. But to the best of his ability, this is wildly unofficial, but to the best of his ability, what he did was he tried to run through the West Virginia football roster. And this could have implications in other sports, obviously, but with the focus on football, he kind of looked at, okay, here are the guys with 1 year remaining. And again, remember the 1 year remaining guys are the guys who might get to Scroogey here and not be able to capitalize on the extra eligibility with this new rule. And then he looked at guys with 2 years on down to 3 and so on. But guys of note with 1 year, Jaden Bray comes to Wes King, one of the transfers. It'd be nice to get some of these O linemen in here and get a couple years out of them. But, Zeke Durham Campbell, the edge rusher from Coastal. I'm not naming all of them. I'm just highlighting some. Kamari Wilson, safety Kamari Wilson, linebacker Tyler Stolsky. So you could have sent some of the guys, DJ Epps, who's a playmaker for us in the slot and out wide, does some different things for us. Very versatile kid. But those are the guys, according to Schuyler, when he ran through this. I haven't looked officially. Again, I get a headache trying to look at all the impacts of the previous rules, what these kids have remaining. Schuyler said those are some of the guys that have 1 year, and then you get into the 2 year. Here's what was interesting. He has Cam Cook listed as a 2 year guy. Because think about it, Cam Cook, this was going to be his final year. He spent a couple years at TCU, spent a year at Jack State. So if in fact, again, this is unofficial, we got to sort through all this, and we're just trying to give you some juicy stuff to think about and chew on and do your own research and lead you in the right direction. But it'd be a fun conversation if Cam Cook's one of those guys. I haven't had time to stop and catch my breath over this, Wes, to be honest with you, since this broke. I've had a busy couple days, so I haven't had a chance to really get that deep on any of this. But then you look at Prince Strawn is a 2 year guy. Karsten Cassidy, the tackle from UConn, Cam Griffin, from Jack State, Devin Voss, O-line, Nick Cray. That's an exciting one because I think Nick Cray, with the step that you're going to see him take with Rick Trickett, boy, oh boy, can he be fun. I think he's a future NFL guy potentially with Rick Trickett pulling the trigger on what they can do there. Just going through some of those names, Wes. And then you get into 3 year guys, Michael Hawkins even, who already played a couple, but this would impact him, on down to 4 year guys. Think about it. Scotty Fox, even as much as he played last year, could theoretically now become a 4 year guy. But again, it won't fully be into effect unless you're the incoming class in a few years down the road. But you're going to be impacted on varying degrees, by varying degrees, I should say, depending on what your incoming year was. But it's exciting possibility for some of these players and for the coaches. It's a reprieve. It makes sense as you're trying to sit there and forecast each of your position groups and identify your needs. That's how recruiting works. You say, hey, we're light here, we're heavy here, and in 2 years we're going to be light here, and 3 years we're going to be light there. Yes, that's more difficult to project now than it's ever been, but part of your job is still to do what you can to project that. It's more difficult to project, but it's also a little easier to address with how fluent the portal is. So again, big news. And from an eligibility standpoint, Wes, I'm trying to think of, honestly, the last time, because the portal is not really eligibility. From a purely eligibility standpoint, I'm trying to think of the last time there was this level of a seismic change in the eligibility rules.
Well, this
maybe the red
yeah.
shirt.
I was just going to say, this isn't quite eligibility. I'm kind of bending your parameters there, but this is probably like the most substantial change since they started letting freshmen play.
Yeah, it's true, because a lot of people forget.
I guess that is
that wasn't always
kind of
the
eligibility a little bit, but yeah, I remember for a long time, freshmen couldn't play.
Yeah.
It's a big part.
They sure couldn't.
Big kind of plot line, and We Are Marshall, right? Is Matthew McConaughey telling his athletic director, "You got to convince the NCAA to let us play freshmen, or else we're not gonna have a team."
I would say, Wes, maybe it's the biggest change since they stopped allowing ringers to play. Guys who, played by these, these professional leagues, these traveling circuses that you would hire for one game, and they'd come in and play for you for $50 back 100 years ago. But as you mentioned, when you got G League guys jumping up to play college basketball, that's still around. So this is bigger than that. When you're adding a fifth year, as the coaches have wanted for so long, been clamoring for so long, let's just stop the nonsense, stop the waivers, stop the red shirt, stop the self-red shirting after 4 games. Wink, wink, tongue in cheek. It's 5 years. There's no reason to self-red shirt after 4 games now. You're taking a weapon away from the agents that they can't, hold the staff over the barrel to the same degree with that. But I don't see a negative to it, but I see a bunch of positives to it.
Jed, if you want to stay in college for more than 5 years, become a doctor or a lawyer, all right? Other than that, get on with your life's work. I don't need 27-year-olds playing in the Big 12 and the SEC and the Big 10. Get out of here. Go get a job.
Remember the Carson Beck comment? I haven't been in class in a couple of years. And, those things are, Matt, what are we doing? What are we doing?
25 years ago, we were joking about how 21 years ago, 22 years ago, we were joking about how Matt Leinart was taking ballroom dancing. So, even that doesn't bother me as much. But this has just made too much sense. You get 5 years. If you play all 5, great. If you redshirt 1 year, great. If you redshirt 1 year and you get hurt 1 year, sorry about your luck. You got 5 years. Then if you want to stay on campus longer, go become a doctor or a lawyer, get a different degree, but you're not playing sports. And it makes too much sense.
And Wes, do you know how many years of college football I played?
You played like 6, didn't you?
I played 6. And here's how that unfolded.
NAIA, right?
Part of it, which had different rules. So here's what ended up happening. I spent 2 years at Samford. One of those was a redshirt year. Technically a medical redshirt year. Okay? Technically. 2 years at Samford. Then I transferred to West Virginia for 3 semesters. One of those semesters was a fall, and then I had 2 springs. So now you're up to 3 seasons, all right? So then I transferred to Glenville, which at the time, they're NCAA Division II now. They weren't then. They were NAIA Division I. Right. NAIA has different rules than the NCAA. So I transferred to Glenville. So I had 3 years that I'd played. One of those was a redshirt year, so I'd exhausted 2 of my 4. You have 5 years to play 4, right? So I spent 2 years at Glenville. My final season being the fall of 1992. The NAIA rules weren't like the NCAA. The NCAA says you have 5 years to play 4. Your clock starts ticking with those 5 years. You know what the NAIA's rules were? You have 10 semesters to play 4 years, and your clock isn't ongoing. So I finished the fall of 1992. I became a part-time student with 2 arranged classes in the spring of 1993, because that would have been my 10th semester. But after my 9th semester, the fall of 92, I wasn't full-time. So I satisfied the NAIA's eligibility requirements, had a conversation with Rich, with Coach Springston, who was previously our OC. We talked about some of these things. He mentioned it my first year at Glenville. Man, if you could do that 2 years before. Well, so I did this, took 2 arranged classes, only 6 hours. I worked in a ski shop that off season, and I worked out. I was in the best shape of my life. So you talk about being ready the following fall. Boy, I showed up ready, brother. And I enrolled full time. That fall of 93 was my 10th semester, and it became my 6th season, but only my 4th season playing, because I had my red shirt year at Samford and my sit-out year at West Virginia. When you transferred up, you had to sit out, so you weren't eligible. So played 4 years, sat out 1 year, red shirt at 1 year, and that's how it worked out. So I wouldn't be able to do this under these rules. Yeah.
Jed, you were ahead of your time. As we wrap this up, before we go, now you just made me think of something. Should Brendan Sorsby try and play NAIA football for a year?
I don't know if Brennan Sorsby should risk injury.
That's a good point. But
that's what I'm looking
play
at.
Football for over a year.
I mean, this is going to be one of those Lords of London type things. If he wants to go to the UFL, he better get an insurance policy to cover any potential injury, and I mean a significant one. And sometimes those things happen. I mean, you hear about them in conversations with players taking part in bowl games. They buy insurance policies in case they get injured. And it's happened a couple times that the insurance, coverage helped them. But if he's going to do that, which, you're concerned about getting rusty and not playing live action for that long, over a year, it would be close to a year and a half. But you're also risking injury, so you got to weigh the benefits there. If you want to do some kind of football and go to the UFL, you want to do something with indirect NFL alliances or touched by the NFL and get some sense of what professional football is like. Canada's a different animal. So that's what's interesting about this. You remember what Hunter Deckers did when this happened to him, the quarterback at Iowa State? Remember what he did?
I don't.
This happened to him like even closer to camp. It was like maybe late July that it happened to those players who were ruled ineligible for betting on Iowa State. Hunter Deckers was the starting quarterback going into camp. All of a sudden, the NCAA comes in and says, no, you don't. You're out, buddy. Your career is over. He transferred down to the junior college level.
That's right.
Won a national championship. Then had like a cup of tea with the New Orleans Saints in the NFL. And now, ironically enough, guess what Hunter Deckers is doing? He's playing for the Houston Gamblers. The last I knew, he was with the Houston Gamblers and the UFL.
Jed, that's a script so good that Martin Scorsese couldn't write that thing. All right,
that's right.
It's all going to be interesting to see how it plays out. I had to sneak that last one in there when you dropped the NAIA. Just made me think of that. But now I got to go pick up the young ones from basketball practice. Jed, this was a fun episode of ITG, man. We touched on a lot of different topics here, some good conversation. Make sure you let us know some of those would you take it or would you go fish things that we talked about with the season predictions for WVU. Let us know in the YouTube comments, and we'll continue to rock and roll here throughout the off season as we get closer and closer to year number 2.0 of Rich Rodriguez. But that will do it for us on this episode of ITG. So for the producer, co-host, Mr. Do-It-All, Schuyler Callihan, the sharp-dressed barbecue and beer truck, Big O, and of course the signal caller, 6 years of college football himself, Mr. Jed Drenning.
I got a doctorate in college football.
Yeah, I think that Tommy Boy joke was written about you. A lot of people go to college for 6 years, Richard. Yeah, they're called doctors. I'm Wes Uhler. You guys already know the one thing that we ask of you is to be an ear and tell an ear about your new favorite WVU football podcast. Take care, everybody. We will talk to you soon. You've been in the gun.
ITG.
The fun doesn't have to stop here.
Be sure to hit subscribe and never miss an episode.
If you have any questions, suggestions, or feedback,
be sure to follow us on X at In the Gun Podcast.
Join us again next time.
Until then,
tell an ear to tell an ear about your new favorite WVU football podcast.
This mission is over. It's over.